Snow fell like ash over the Ardennes, soft enough to hide the sound of engines, thick enough to smother certainty. December 1944 had turned the forest into a white maze, and every mile of road carried the risk of ambush. In a dim command post, maps pinned with trembling fingers showed one word circled again and again: Bastogne. Whoever held it controlled the arteries of the front. Whoever lost it would bleed. General Dwight D. Eisenhower stood with his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the map. Reports arrived in fragments, radio static, breathless couriers, rumors sharpened by fear. The Germans had thrown everything into the Ardennes. Bastogne was surrounded. The 101st Airborne was cut off. Time was the enemy. Across frozen roads to
Status
the south,
report now.
George
We have
S.
incoming signals.
Patton was moving.
Copy that.
Patton
Verifying
had promised
coordinates.
something that still echoed in Eisenhower's ears. When others spoke of weeks, Patton had said days. When they spoke of difficulty, Patton had smiled and talked of momentum. He had turned an entire army 90 degrees
This
in
is
the dead of
command.
winter.
Proceed with
engines
caution
coughing
and
in the
report
cold,
any movement
men marching
immediately.
with frostbitten resolve. Eisenhower trusted Patton's genius, and feared his speed. Victory arrived fast under Patton, but so did consequences. On the morning the message came, the sky was the color of steel. A radio operator stiffened, then looked up slowly, as if afraid the words might break if spoken too loudly. "Sir, Third Army reports contact north of Assiniboia." Eisenhower stepped closer. "Go on." Another pause. Static crackled. "They've broken through. Elements of the 4th Armored Division have reached Bastogne." For a heartbeat, the room was silent. No cheers. No relief. Only the weight of what that meant. Bastogne was no longer alone. The Germans' ring was cracked. The gamble had worked. Eisenhower exhaled, a long breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Somewhere far away, Patton was already pushing beyond the breakthrough, already thinking of the next move. That was Patton, never satisfied with a rival, always chasing the horizon. But the report wasn't finished. "Sir," the operator added, "Patton's spearhead reached Bastogne before any coordinated Allied relief forces could arrive." He moved faster than expected. Eisenhower closed his eyes for a moment. Faster than expected. The phrase carried praise and warning in equal measure. He turned to the officers gathered around him, Bradley's calm gaze, staff officers clutching notebooks, men who had seen plans unravel and miracles happen in the same hour. Eisenhower's voice, when he spoke, was low. "So," he said, "George did it." Someone allowed themselves a small smile. Another murmured, "Only Patton." Eisenhower nodded. He felt pride, deep and genuine. Patton had saved Bastogne. He had saved lives. He had struck the Germans where they believed winter itself was their ally. History would remember this moment. It would remember Patton. But Eisenhower also knew something else. Speed, when unchecked, could outrun strategy. A breakthrough could become an overreach. And Patton, brilliant, relentless, defiant, did not always stop when told he had gone far enough. Eisenhower walked to the radio. "Get me 3rd Army headquarters." The line crackled. Voices overlapped. Then Patton's voice came through, sharp, confident, alive with motion. "Patton here." "George," Eisenhower said, "you reached Bastogne." "Yes, sir," Patton replied, as if reporting the weather. "My boys did exactly what I told you they would." "I know," Eisenhower said. He allowed himself a faint smile. "You moved faster than anyone thought possible." Patton chuckled. "War favors the bold, Ike." There it was, the old fire, the belief that speed itself was a weapon. Eisenhower straightened. "And it also favors coordination," he said. "Tell me your situation." Patton launched into details: positions, fuel, resistance collapsing in pockets, German armor withdrawing under pressure. He spoke like a man already rewriting tomorrow. Eisenhower listened carefully, letting the confidence wash over him while measuring its edges. When Patton finished, Eisenhower waited a beat. "George," he said, "you did something extraordinary today." Patton paused. The silence on the line was rare. "Thank you, sir." Eisenhower's voice hardened just enough to matter. "But hear me clearly. Bastogne was the objective. You reached it first, and you saved it. Now you will hold, coordinate, and prepare for the next phase. No lone charges. No racing ahead of support." Patton inhaled. Eisenhower could almost picture him, jaw tight, eyes already scanning maps. With respect, sir, Patton said, the enemy is reeling. This is the moment to strike deeper. And this, Eisenhower replied, is the moment to win the war, not a headline. Another pause. Longer this time. Finally, Patton spoke, quieter. Understood. The line went dead. Eisenhower set the receiver down slowly. Around him, officers watched, reading his expression. What did you say to him? One asked. Eisenhower looked back at the map. Bastogne was no longer a trapped dot, it was a doorway. I told him the truth, Eisenhower said. That he arrived first. And that arriving first is only useful if everyone arrives together. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering tracks, blurring the past hour into something almost peaceful. But the war was far from over. In Bastogne, exhausted paratroopers looked south and saw American tanks where none had been before. In German lines, doubt crept in like the cold. And somewhere on a frozen road, George S. Patton was already restless, already thinking beyond Bastogne, while Dwight D. Eisenhower carried the heavier burden, turning bold victories into lasting ones. History would remember the relief of Bastogne as a triumph of speed and courage. But in the quiet after the report, Eisenhower understood something few would ever see, that the most important words spoken that day were not shouted in celebration, but measured carefully, spoken into a crackling radio, to a general who had arrived first, and needed, now, to wait.